The day I found myself arranging photo frames on that concrete basement wall, a heavy truth settled over me. This wasn't just a room. It was a symbol of how far I'd been pushed aside. Tom and Becky had put in a heater, but the space still felt cold and confining. 40 years of life and love, reduced to a storage corner I barely recognized as home. In that moment, I knew I had lost more than just my place. I'd lost myself. That night, I quietly made a choice that would change everything. I would sell the house. And keep it a secret until the very end. Before we dive back in, let us know where you're tuning in from. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because tomorrow, I've got something even more special lined up just for you. The weekly bridge game invitation came as a quiet challenge. I patiently refreshed my rusty skills, hesitant but hopeful. The morning walking group welcomed me as if I'd always been a member. Each interaction gently reinforced what I was gradually accepting. Identity could be fluid. I could be more than the roles that had defined me for decades. That I existed separately from Mom and Grandma. The Friday before Liam's planned visit with the kids, I got a call from Olivia, the real estate agent. Everything went perfectly at closing, she reported cheerfully. The Parkers are thrilled with the house, and the full amount's been transferred to your account. I thanked her, feeling a weight I hadn't realized I was still carrying suddenly lift. It was done. The house was truly no longer mine. How are you settling into Harborview Village? Olivia asked. I've had several clients very happy there. It feels right, I told her, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. More right than I expected, actually. After we hung up, I walked through my condo, my home, with fresh eyes. In just a week, I'd already made it mine in ways both large and small. Peter's landscape paintings harmonized with new watercolors I'd purchased at the gallery. My grandmother's quilt draped across the modern sofa. Books filled shelves in an order that made sense only to me. It wasn't the house on Elm Street with its 4 decades of memories. It was something else entirely. A space that reflected not who I had been but who I was becoming. That thought stayed with me the next morning as I prepared for Liam's visit. I baked oatmeal cookies, remembering that Ethan and Mia preferred them to chocolate chip, and arranged a vase of fresh flowers on the dining table. Small gestures of welcome, of continuity amid change. At precisely 11, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, uncertain what to expect. The kids rushed in first, exclaiming over the view, the fancy elevator, and the huge swimming pool they'd spotted on the way in. Liam and Sarah followed more hesitantly, their expressions a mix of curiosity and lingering discomfort. The awkwardness was palpable. It's really nice, Mom, Liam said finally, standing by the balcony doors. Much nicer than I pictured. What did you picture? I asked. He looked embarrassed. I don't know. Something institutional, I guess. This is it, I said simply. It suits you. Thanks, he replied, offering an olive branch. Sarah hovered near the kitchen, examining photographs I'd arranged on a side table. You have new pictures, she observed, not meeting my eyes. I bought new frames last week, I explained. A fresh start seemed to call for new frames too. She nodded, her silence making sense. The visit proceeded with stilted conversation and careful politeness, but beneath the surface tension I sensed a gradual thawing. Liam asked about the community garden. Sarah complimented the view. The children, oblivious to adult undercurrents, begged to explore the grounds. Can we see the pool, Grandma, please? Mia tugged at my hand, her enthusiasm impossible to resist. Of course, I agreed. We can all go. As we walked the paths of Harborview Village, I found myself pointing out features with unexpected pride. The gazebo where morning yoga classes were held, the clubhouse where I'd joined the book club, the small dock where residents could launch kayaks. You've learned a lot about this place in just a week, Liam observed as the kids ran ahead to examine a fountain. I've been exploring, I replied. It's a friendly community. Easy to feel at home. He was quiet for a moment. I'm still angry, you know, about how everything happened with the house. I know. But I'm trying to understand. He kicked at a pebble on the path. Sarah and I have been talking a lot about what you said that night, how we made you feel. I waited, giving him space. We didn't see it, he admitted finally. How much we were taking for granted. How much we were expecting from you without asking. I'm not saying we would have done anything differently with the house. We still needed a bigger place, and it made financial sense, but we could have approached it differently. Respected your position more. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was an acknowledgement, which for my proud son was significant progress. I appreciate you saying that, I told him. And for what it's worth, I could have communicated better too. Instead of going along with everything until I exploded. He almost smiled. You did explode. Pretty spectacularly. I learned from the best, I teased. You had some legendary tantrums as a toddler. This time he did smile, a genuine one that reached his eyes. So I've been told. We walked in more comfortable silence for a while, watching the children explore with uninhibited curiosity. By the way, Liam said eventually, we found a house. Not as nice as yours, the old one, I mean, but it's in the same school district. We close next month. That's wonderful news, I said sincerely. I'm glad it worked out so quickly. Yeah, well, real estate moves fast these days. He cleared his throat. Anyway, once we're settled, maybe you could come for dinner sometimes. If you want to. The invitation, hesitant as it was, felt like a fragile olive branch, a tentative step toward mending old wounds. It represented the first real step toward rebuilding our relationship after months of tension and silence. I'd like that very much, I replied, warmth blooming inside me despite the cautiousness of the offer. When they left a few hours later, the children, Mia and Ethan, bombarded me with requests and promises that I would attend Mia's dance recital and Ethan's soccer game the following weekend. Their excitement and joy eased some of the lingering awkwardness. Sarah gave me a brief, hesitant hug, an unspoken gesture of goodwill, and Liam lingered after they headed to the car, his expression softer than it had been in weeks. Mom, he said quietly, almost shyly, are you really okay here? His question struck a chord deep inside me. It came from the boy who had once been the little child worried about his mother, the boy who brought me dandelions and asked if I was lonely when Peter was away on business trips. Despite the years and the fractures, that caring child was still alive in the man before me. I'm more than okay, I assured him with a steady voice. I'm beginning to thrive. He nodded slowly, seeming to absorb the truth in my words even if he didn't fully grasp it yet. Good. That's good, he said with a tentative smile. Watching them drive away, I felt a swirl of emotions, relief that the visit had gone better than I'd feared, sadness for the closeness we'd lost, and hope that we might still build something new from the ashes of resentment and misunderstanding. I was still standing on the walkway, lost in my thoughts, when Nathan appeared from the direction of the main entrance. I saw a family leaving, he said, falling into step beside me. That was Liam and the kids, I confirmed. Yes. Their first visit. How did it go? Better than I expected, I admitted. Nathan studied my face, his gaze gentle and concerned. Are you all right? I am. I surprised myself with the strength of my answer. I'm just thinking about how much has changed in such a short time. A month ago, I was living in a basement, feeling invisible and taken for granted. And now, I gestured around us at the vibrant community I was quickly coming to love, at the future stretching before me like an open road. Now I'm here. Starting over at 68. Who would have thought it possible? I would have, Nathan said simply, with conviction. You've always had more strength than you realized, Eleanor. All you needed was the chance to use it. As we walked back toward my condo, discussing plans for the afternoon, I reflected on his words. Strength. Yes, that's what I'd found in the midst of loss and change and difficult choices. Not the strength to endure silently, which I'd always had in abundance, but something different. The strength to assert my own worth, to claim my own space, to write my own story. The chapter of my life spent in the house on Elm Street had ended. The basement grandmother was gone. In her place stood a woman who was only beginning to discover who she might become. Spring melted into summer with a gentleness that matched the rhythm of my evolving life at Lakeshore Village. By late June, my small garden plot was flourishing. Tomato plants reaching skyward, herbs releasing their fragrance in the morning sun, marigolds adding bursts of color along the edges. Each morning, I rose early to tend to my plants before the heat of the day set in. "You've got quite the green thumb, Margaret," a fellow resident observed one morning. "Those tomatoes look like they'll be ready soon." "Another week, I think," I replied, brushing soil from my hands. "I'm growing the same variety, Peter, and I always planted. Sweet millions. They produce all summer long." Margaret nodded approvingly. "That's the secret to a good third act, isn't it?" "The third act. The theatrical metaphor," she smiled. "Your life's next phase, not an ending, but a new beginning." The metaphor appealed to me. My first act had been childhood through early adulthood, education, career beginnings, falling in love with Peter. The second act encompassed marriage, motherhood, creating a home, teaching generations of children. Now, firmly in my third act, I realized it was not an ending but a different kind of beginning, a life shaped entirely by my own choices. My days settled into a rhythm that was mine alone, mornings in the garden or walking with the lake group, afternoons reading or exploring the community's art studio, where I began experimenting with watercolors again. Evenings often spent with Nathan or new friends, dinners at the clubhouse, concerts in the pavilion, bridge games that grew increasingly competitive as my skills returned. The first tomatoes from my garden became pasta sauce shared with Nathan on my balcony. The initial watercolor attempts became cards sent to Mia and Ethan. Morning walks led to discoveries of hidden paths and secluded benches perfect for quiet reflection. Small pleasures, perhaps, but they were mine, chosen freely and enjoyed fully, untainted by obligation or resentment. By late July, after much negotiation about timing and comfort levels, I accepted an invitation to dinner at Liam and Sarah's new house. It was smaller than mine had been, with a layout that needed some work, but they were already making it their own. "We're thinking of knocking out this wall," Liam explained as he showed me around, "to open up the kitchen to the dining area. It'll bring in more natural light." I agreed, noting how the afternoon sun hit the western windows. "That'll definitely make the space feel larger." "That's what I keep telling Sarah," Liam chuckled, pleased I shared his vision. "It's worth the investment." As we toured the house, I noticed how carefully Liam pointed out features they planned to preserve. The original hardwood under the carpet, built-in bookshelves in the study, the leaded glass in the front door. Was he making a point about respecting the home's character? A subtle acknowledgement of my feelings about the changes they'd made to my old house, perhaps? Or maybe he was simply proud of their find and wanted my approval. Either way, I gave it freely. "It's a lovely home, Liam. I can see why you were drawn to it." Dinner was served on the patio, the children chattering about summer activities and the upcoming school year. Sarah, who'd been quieter than usual during my visit, finally spoke as she served dessert. "I've been meaning to ask," she began, not quite meeting my eyes, "if you'd be willing to watch the kids after school 2 days a week once the fall semester starts. My schedule at work has changed, and we're struggling to find consistent care." I felt a momentary flicker of trepidation. Was this the beginning of slipping back into old patterns? The ever-available grandmother whose time belonged to everyone but herself? Liam must have seen my hesitation. "It's completely fine if you can't," he added quickly. "We understand you have your own life now. We've looked into after-school programs as a backup." "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "Let me think about which days might work with my schedule. I have watercolor classes on Wednesdays, and the garden club meets on Mondays." "You take watercolor classes?" Mia perked up immediately. "Can I come sometime? And garden club sounds boring." Noah chimed in. "But can I see your garden? Mom says you grow the best tomatoes." Their genuine enthusiasm touched something deep within me. Here was a chance to share parts of my new life with them, to be a different kind of grandmother than I'd been before. I think that could be arranged, I smiled. Perhaps you both could visit my place one afternoon. I could show you the garden and the art studio. Maybe you'd even like to try painting with me. Yes, please, Mia exclaimed, bouncing in her seat. By the time I left that evening, we'd agreed I would pick up the children on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons and bring them to my condo until Liam or Sarah could collect them after work. Not out of obligation or assumption, but as a conscious choice, a gift freely given with clear boundaries that everyone understood. As Liam walked me to my car, he paused, hands in his pockets. Thanks, Mom, for considering it. I mean, I know things are different now. They are, I agreed, but different doesn't have to mean worse. Sometimes it can be better, healthier for everyone. He nodded slowly. I'm starting to see that. The drive back to Lakeshore Village gave me time to reflect on how much had shifted in the few months since I'd taken my stand, not just in where we lived or what we owned, but in the fundamental dynamics of our relationships. The broken patterns were being rebuilt in new configurations, with more respect and honesty on all sides. The next morning, Nathan and I met for our now regular coffee at the Clubhouse Cafe. As I recounted the dinner and the childcare arrangement, he listened thoughtfully. Are you sure about this? He asked when I finished. You fought so hard for your independence. I'd hate to see you slide back into being taken for granted. His concern warmed me even as I shook my head. It's different this time. I'm choosing to spend time with my grandchildren on my terms. 2 specific afternoons, not whenever needed. And they're coming to my space, not me going to theirs. Fair enough, he conceded. I just worry about you. I reached across the table to squeeze his hand. I value that more than I can say. But I think I can be both independent Eleanor and involved grandma. The key is choice and respect. He turned his hand to hold mine. You've changed so much since I first met you at the library. Do you realize that? You speak with such confidence now. Had I changed, or simply returned to who I'd been before? Life and circumstances had gradually diminished me, perhaps both. The woman I was becoming incorporated elements of who I'd always been, with newfound clarity about what I wanted and needed. Speaking of changes, Nathan said with a hint of nervousness, I've been thinking about something I'd like to discuss with you. That sounds serious, I said, noting how he straightened in his chair. Not serious exactly, but important. He took a deep breath. The lease on my apartment is ending next month, and I've been considering my options. One possibility, if you're open to it, would be for me to look at units here at Lakeshore Village. My heart gave a little jump. You'd want to move here? The community suits me, he explained quickly. The book clubs, the walking paths, the cultural activities. Then he hesitated before continuing more softly. If I'm honest, the main attraction is being closer to you, Eleanor. We hadn't put labels on our relationship or discussed the future in concrete terms. At our age, romance developed differently, more carefully, but with greater clarity about what mattered. I think that would be lovely, I said finally, surprising myself with how much I meant it. There's a unit available in Building D, just across the courtyard from mine. 1 bedroom, north-facing balcony. It might suit you. His face brightened. You noticed available units. I might have made some inquiries, I admitted, feeling a blush rise to my cheeks. Just out of curiosity, of course. Of course, he agreed, eyes crinkling with amusement. Should we speak with Diane about viewing it this afternoon? The ease with which we made this tentative plan, not completely, not recklessly, but meaningfully, felt both terrifying and right. At 68, I wasn't naive about romance or blind to the complications that could arise, but I wasn't willing to deny myself the joy of connection, either. August brought the full bounty of my garden, tomatoes, peppers, basil, and zinnias that attracted butterflies by the dozen. I made fresh salsa to share at community events, pressed flowers between book pages to make bookmarks for the children, and experimented with botanical prints in my watercolor class. It also brought Nathan's move to Lakeshore Village, a process I observed with growing delight as he settled into the unit across the courtyard. We maintained our separate spaces, neither of us ready to completely entangle our lives, but proximity added a new dimension to our relationship. Morning coffee on his balcony, evening walks without needing to drive to meet each other, the casual intimacy of dropping by with extra tomatoes or a book to share. When the children began visiting on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they quickly incorporated Nathan into their routine. Noah discovered Nathan's collection of nature photography books and spent hours poring over images of national parks. Mia was fascinated by his knowledge of birds, demanding identification of every feathered visitor to the balcony feeders. "Is Mr. Nathan your boyfriend?" Mia asked one afternoon as we worked on watercolor techniques in the community art studio. The question, delivered with the directness only a child can muster, caught me off guard. "He's a very special friend," I replied carefully. Mia considered this, brush poised over her paper. "Like Jake is Noah's special friend who comes over for sleepovers?" "Something like that," I agreed, wondering what Liam and Sarah would make of the comparison. "When you get older, friendship can be complicated in wonderful ways," Mia declared, returning to her painting. "You smile more when he's around," Noah observed quietly. "Out of the mouths of babes, as the saying goes." Nathan brought joy to my days, a shared understanding that required no explanation, a companionship that supported rather than diminished my sense of self. In late August, Helen invited me to join her and several other retired teachers for lunch. It had been months since I'd seen most of them, our connections gradually fading after I'd left teaching and then diminished further during my basement days. "Eleanor Grace Peterson," Jean exclaimed when I entered the restaurant. "You look marvelous. Retirement clearly agrees with you." If only she knew the full story, I thought as I greeted each woman with hugs and exclamations about how long it had been. I chose not to share the details of my situation with anyone outside my immediate circle, preferring to focus on the present rather than dwell on past difficulties. "So, tell us everything," Jean insisted once we'd ordered. "We hear you've moved to Lakeshore Village. How are you liking it?" As I described my new home and activities, I was struck by how animated I felt, how easily the words flowed. These women had known me at the height of my teaching career, when I'd been confident and purposeful in the classroom. Their presence seemed to reconnect me to that version of myself, reminding me of capabilities I'd temporarily forgotten. "And is there a special someone in the picture?" Grace asked, with a sly directness that had made her such an effective kindergarten teacher. Helen mentioned a gentleman friend, and I shot her a mock accusatory glance. "His name is Nathan," I admitted. "He owns the bookstore near the library where I used to buy supplies. We reconnected a few months ago, and he's recently moved to Lakeshore Village as well." The table erupted in delighted exclamations and demands for more details. Their genuine pleasure in my happiness, free from judgment about romance at our age, touched me deeply. "Good for you," Jean said, raising her glass in a small toast. "Life's too short to worry about what others think." The weeks following lunch brought new challenges and opportunities. When Liam called with an urgent request, I knew my capacity to navigate family dynamics had grown. "Mom, I hate to ask this," he began, his voice strained. "Becky's mother fell and broke her hip yesterday. Becky's flying to Arizona to help her father for a week or two." I was genuinely concerned. "Is Patricia going to be all right?" "The doctors say the prognosis is good, but she'll need extensive rehab." With Becky gone, I'm struggling to handle the kids' schedules. I have a big client presentation next week that I can't reschedule, and there's no after-school program on Wednesday because of a teacher in-service day. I need more help with Noah and Mia. "I have that," I finished for him. "Yes," he admitted. "I know it's a lot to ask, especially after everything, but is there any way you could take them for a few extra days? Maybe even have them stay overnight once or twice?" 6 months ago, such a request would have been an expectation, not a question. 6 months ago, I would have agreed without hesitation, rearranging my life to accommodate everyone else's needs. Now, I took a moment to consider what I was willing and able to do, what boundaries needed to be maintained, what compromises I could make without losing myself in the process. I can help, I said finally. But let's be specific about the schedule. I have commitments I need to keep as well. The relief in Liam's voice was palpable. Thank you, Mom. Anything you can do would be a huge help. We worked out an arrangement. The children would stay with me for 3 nights the following week, and I would handle their after-school activities on days when Liam had critical work commitments. In return, he promised to have detailed schedules, necessary supplies, and completed homework ready when I picked them up. The week of Noah and Mia's extended stay proved more challenging and more rewarding than I'd anticipated. They arrived at my condo with backpacks, duffel bags, and the wide-eyed excitement of children embarking on an adventure. Grandma, where do we sleep? Mia asked immediately, bouncing on her toes as she surveyed my compact living space. I've set up the guest room for both of you, I explained, leading them down the short hallway. Noah, there's an air mattress for you, and Mia, you'll take the daybed. The room, which usually served as my reading nook and occasional guest space, had been transformed with fresh linens, nightlights, and small touches to make them feel welcome. Noah's favorite soccer team pennant was pinned to the wall, and a stuffed unicorn, Mr. Sparkles, was placed on Mia's pillow. Mr. Sparkles? Mia gasped, grabbing the unicorn that had traveled between households during previous overnight stays at the old house. Of course, I smiled. He's been waiting for you. The first evening quickly established our new routine. Homework at the dining table with my assistants when needed, dinner prepared together with age-appropriate tasks assigned to each child, then board games or reading before bedtime. It wasn't so different from how I'd managed when they visited the old house, but somehow the context changed everything. Here in my chosen space, surrounded by evidence of my independent life, watercolor supplies stacked neatly on the sideboard, garden plans spread across my desk, books selected for my interests rather than others' expectations, I found a new kind of joy in grandmothering. Not the self-sacrificing service I'd fallen into before, but a genuine sharing of who I was with these young people I loved. Can we help in your garden tomorrow? Noah asked on the second evening as we prepared dinner. Dad says you grow the best tomatoes ever. I'd like that, I replied, touched that Liam had spoken positively about my garden. Maybe we could make fresh salsa with what we harvest. Yes. Mia clapped her hands. And can Mr. Nathan come over? He's never tried real salsa before. The children's easy acceptance of Nathan in my life was one of the unexpected blessings of our new arrangement. They treated him as a natural extension of their visits, including him in games and conversations without the awkwardness sometimes characteristic of adult reactions to late-life relationships. I'm sure he'd love to join us, I assured her. We'll invite him for dinner tomorrow. That night, after tucking the children into bed and answering Mia's inevitable one more story request, I sat on my balcony in the soft evening air. The lights of Lakeshore Village twinkled around the lake, and from across the courtyard, I could see Nathan's reading lamp glowing warmly in his living room. A text message lit up my phone. How's it going with the grandkids? Need reinforcements. I smiled at his consideration and typed back, all quiet on the Western Front. They've requested your presence for salsa making tomorrow evening. If you're free, wouldn't miss it, came his immediate reply. Sweet dreams, Eleanor. Sweet dreams indeed. Sitting there in the gentle darkness, listening to the muted sounds of my grandchildren settling into sleep in the next room, feeling the quiet presence of Nathan nearby, I was struck by an unexpected realization. I was happy. Not the muted contentment I'd settled for in my later years with Robert. Not the forced cheerfulness I'd maintained for everyone else's benefit during my basement days. Genuinely, deeply happy. It wasn't that life was perfect. The wound between Liam and me was still healing, still tender in places. The future held uncertainties as all futures do. My knees still ached when rain threatened. Sometimes I worried about what aging might bring. But I had created this life, this specific configuration of home, relationships, and activities, through my own choices. I had reclaimed agency over my time, my space, my identity. I had transformed from the invisible basement grandmother into Eleanor Martinez, a woman with preferences and boundaries, and joy of her own making. The third day of the children's stay coincided with the community's end-of-summer festival. Fairy lights were strung around the gazebo, tables laden with potluck contributions lined the clubhouse patio, and a small band of residents set up instruments for dancing under the stars. "Can we go, please?" Mia begged when she saw the preparations from my balcony. I brought my twirly dress we'd planned to wear. I signed up to bring my garden salsa, remember? And Nathan is meeting us there. The evening unfolded like a scene from a life I'd never imagined for myself, introducing my grandchildren to new friends, watching Mia dance with David Chen while Noah discussed soccer strategies with Richard, sharing the salsa we'd made together to appreciative compliments from neighbors who now knew me by name. "Your grandchildren are delightful," Margaret commented as we watched Mia attempt to teach Nathan a complicated twirling maneuver. "They have your spirit," she added. "My spirit," I echoed, surprised by the observation. "That spark," she clarified. "The curiosity, the enthusiasm. I see it in you when you're working in the garden or showing your latest watercolor. They have that same quality." I'd never considered that I might have passed along aspects of myself beyond superficial resemblances. The idea that something essential, something Margaret recognized as my spirit, lived on in Noah and Mia touched me profoundly. As the evening wound down, the children growing sleepy despite their protests, Nathan helped me gather our belongings for the short walk back to my condo. "This is perfect," he said quietly, gesturing to include the whole scene, the community winding down its celebration, the children leaning against me tiredly, the warm summer night. "Seeing you like this, Eleanor, it's like watching someone who's finally found her rightful place." His words resonated deeply with what I'd been feeling, a rightful place not defined by others' needs or expectations, but discovered through my own journey of loss and restoration. "I think you might be right," I agreed, linking my arm through his as we walked home that night.